Jacob James with it. Tyler Chapman with the goal there. We're having some audio or some technical issues. Here's Harrison Webster, shot on goal that hits the post there. 6-1 Vikings, 5:47 left in the second period. Just go like. Back it down there. Here's Tyler Chapman with it for the Vikings. Battling with Harrison Webster. Here's Chapman with it for the Vikings. Chapman up to Aurelio. Shot tipped out front. Here's Harrison Webster going to try to chip it in. Played out of danger by Goretzky. Here's Aurelio with a shot on goal. Covered by Crecilius. Face-off won by the Vandals. They played around to Livvig. Here's Livvig with it, and a 2-on-1 opportunity developing for the Vandals. Here's Lee with it. Dangles out Carver Johnson there. Here's Lee. Going to get it back to the blue line. Kotzner going to swing it in. Or sorry, that was Paulson for the Vandals. Here's Lee with it for the Vandals. Gets it up to Paulson. Paulson going to swing it around to Livvig. They're going to find Lee out front. It's going to be collected by Anderson. He's going to try to get it out. Anderson. Vikings able to keep it in to the Vandal zone. Here is Canavan for the Vandals. Pressured by Andre Shapiro. Canavan into the Viking zone. Deegan. Canavan with a pass out front to Kotzner that sails up. Paulson with a shot, gloved there by Morena, and he holds on. Face-off won by the Vandals. Goretzky try to pass there. Here comes Andrew Fan and Aaron James into the zone. James out the Fan out front. He scores! Andrew Fan. Andrew Fan, his 15th goal of the season, reclaims the team lead. It's going to be back and forth between him and Brumbaugh the rest of the way here. Here comes Secord busting into the zone. Secord tries to evade a check there. That puck's going to be swung all the way down. Cooper Hunter-Smith collects. You can hear Secord say, "That's on me, that's on me." That turnover there. Here's Secord, gets it around to, tries to get it around to Cooper Hunter-Smith. And here's Hunter-Smith with it for the Vikings. Hunter-Smith tried to chip it up into the Viking zone, or neutral zone, and that's going to be played up by a high stick. Face-off won by the Vikings. That's going to be played by Slate all the way down on Crasilius. He's just going to cover it up. You get a whistle. 2:51 left in the second period. 7-1 Vikings. Face off won by the Vikings. Sawai with the shot from the point. Here's Sawai with it. He's going to collect it back into the corner. Out front to Pearson. Good pass there from Kyler Slate. That's going to be played back in. Here comes the Vandals. 2-on-1 opportunity. Good body there from Nick Sawai. Shot on goal. Gloved by Morena. Here comes Harrison Webster. He's going to play it up to Tyler Chapman. Chapman busting into the Vandal zone. Chapman with a shot attempt that's blocked there by Canavan for the Vandals. Played around to Goretzky. He's going to get it up to Kotzner for the Vandals. In neutral ice, Kotzner. Good play there by Jacob James to collect the puck and settle it down. Jesse Deegan, he's going to try to find Tyler Chapman. Played there by Carver Johnson. Here's Chapman with it. Gets it back to Deegan. Deegan for the Vikings. Gotten up to Webster. Webster tried to chip it in. Here's Jacob James with it. Battle, good body there from Canavan for the Vandals. James. A lot of bodies flying, and we're going to have a penalty on, looks like, the Vikings. Face off won by the Vandals. That's going to be played around by Shapiro. Here's Hunter Smith from the high point, tipped out front by Paulson and Shapiro. We're going to have a penalty on the play. Looks like it'll go against Andre Shapiro. Tied up and won by the Vikings. 5-on-3 for the Vandals. Good opportunity for them to get on the board late in this second period with 51 seconds left. Here's Lidberg with it for the Vandals. He gets it up to Lee. Lee looking for Paulson. Paulson going to creep in. Paulson trying to find Lidberg. Good defense here from the Vikings. Here's Lee from the slot. Out front to Paulson. Good save there from Morena. Paulson battling with Brumbaugh. Paulson going to try to swing it, and that's going to be all the way back into their own zone. 20 seconds left in the second period. Here's Lee with it for the Vandals. Going to drop it off to, and here comes Rhett Brumbaugh. Brumbaugh, shot on goal seen by Crecilius, and we get a whistle with 3 seconds left in the second period. Quick face-off job by Andrew Fan. That's going to do it for the second period. Andrew Fan going at it with the Vandals defender, and that'll do it for the second period. 7-1 Vikings after 2. We'll be back in a few minutes from Bellingham Sportsplex. Alrighty, back for the third period between the Idaho Vandals and the Western Washington Vikings. No stream connection here, live stream connection here thus far in the third period. We lost connection in the second period, so hopefully we will have this posted after the game. Here's Paulson with it for the Vandals. He's going to drop it up to Ludwig. Ludwig from the left dot. Shot and sticked away by Morena out front. Here comes Jacob James, going to try to bust into the neutral zone. Declan Quinn plays it back into neutral ice. Here's Lee with it for the Vandals. He's just going to play it in towards Secord. He's going to chip it back into the Vandals' end. Back to 5-on-5 we go. Under Shapiro out of the box for the Vikings. Deegan. Back into neutral ice. Here comes Patrick Pearson for the Vikings. Pearson cutting his way in. Looking for an available outlet out front. It's going to be taken away by the Vandals. Here's James going to be trying to pass there to Patrick Pearson. Pearson with it. Back to James. James. Here's Pearson from the slot. Tried to find Brumbaugh out front. It's going to be played back. Shot and blockered away by Crecilius for the Idaho Vandals. Puck play back into neutral ice. Here's Secord. He's going to chip it back to Deegan. Deegan over to James. Here comes Andrew Fan the other way. Fan across the blue line. Gets over to Brumbaugh. Brumbaugh. Try to connect it. Get out of James out front. And that's going to be played back into neutral ice. Here comes the Vikings the other way. Good play by Carver Johnson to stick him away, and the net is off its moorings. Face off won by the Vikings. Aurelio with it for Western. Aurelio in the corner, going to get it up to Brett Brumbaugh. Brumbaugh going to play it back into neutral ice. Here's Aaron James going to drop it off to Fan. Fan with 2 goals already here tonight. Fan. Circles. Going to try to flatten his way out front, and Brett Brumbaugh able to squeeze it in. Brumbaugh with the hat trick. 17:31 in the third. Vikings lead 8-1. So sorry, that was not Brett Brumbaugh's hat trick goal. It was his second goal of the game, his 15th on the season. Ties him for the lead on the team with Andrew Fan. They just keep going back and forth. Here's Sawai down there, battling with Tyler Chapman down there with Desjardins of the Vandals. He takes a spill. Back the other way comes Jacob James, busting across the ice. Here comes Tyler Chapman into the Vandal zone. Drop off pass to Harrison Webster, who finds Chapman out front, and he scores. Chapman has the hat trick, his 13th of the season. It is 9-1 Vikings. Face-off won by the Vandals and all the way down. Grisilius kind of taking a little bit of a tumble there. Vikings are approaching scoring 10-plus goals in 4 straight games. Secord with a tip out front by Slate, seen by Grisilius. Slate to take the draw. Won by the Vandals. They get it down. It's Quinn with a pass out front to Pearson. It sails wide. Back the other way comes Kirkwood for the Vandals. Secord going to circle. Secord circling again. Fades a bit of a check there from Kirkwood and back the other way. Gotten up to Pearson. He's going to pass it off to Slate. Unable to catch it clean and back into neutral ice. Here's Secord with it. Secord across the blue line. Quick shot on goal seen by Grisilius. Declan Quinn able to keep it in. Here's Pearson with a shot attempt from the slot. Here's Slate battling down there with Declan Quinn. Quinn comes out with it. Going to try to pass it to Secord at the point. And that's back into neutral ice. Here's Hunter Smith. 15:34 left in the third period. Secord back into the Vandal zone. Shot on goal. Covered up by Grisilius. Here's Mongo with it for the Vandals. Back to Adams. Anderson with a pass out front to Shapiro. Shapiro with a shot from the slot. Anderson with a shot. Grisilius, and that's covered by Grisilius. Tristan Anderson looking for his first goal as a Viking. Face-off won by the Vandals. Gotten back out into neutral ice, collected by Deegan. He chips it in. 14:49 left in the third period. So as I said, it would be the 4th straight game the Vikings put double digits on the board. They went to Moscow, Idaho a couple weekends ago and put 11 on the Vandals. Covered by Grisilius yet again. Face off to the left of Grisilius. Won by the Vandals. They get it all the way around to Aurelio. Aurelio from the left point trying to find Brumbaugh in the slot. Here's Aurelio with it. Brumbaugh. And here comes Canavan for the Vandals the other way. Good stick there by Sawai. Gets it back into neutral ice. Not going to go the length of the ice for icing. Collected by Paulson. Paulson going to get it up to Canavan. And here comes Canavan the other way. Canavan tried a shot on goal. Pearson. Or sorry, Secord. Steering it into the corner. Back into the corner. Collected by Sawai. Sawai with it for the Vikings. Here comes Brumbaugh. Brumbaugh into the Vandal zone. Collected by Aaron James. Brumbaugh with a shot. Gloved by Grisilius. Face-off won by the Vandals. Hunter Smith battling down there. That's back into neutral ice. All the way down for Ethan Secord to collect it. Good forecheck there from, lost my roster here. Here's Jacob James with it. Back across the blue line, bodied there by the Vandals. Back the other way. Here's Garetsky with it. And here come the Vikings. Puck chips back in. Chapman going to try a wraparound opportunity. Jacob James out front, couldn't quite collect it, and that's it. Sails back into the Viking zone. 12:39 left to play in the third period. Face-off won by the Vandals. Declan Quinn with it. Tried to find Sleddy. Here's Deegan with it from the left point. Just going to sail it wide. And Luca Adams going to get it back into neutral ice. Here's Deegan. Swings it in. Mongo with it for the Vandals. He's going to swing it around to Goretsky. And collected by Declan Quinn. Quinn, who had a hat trick a week ago today against the Gonzaga Bulldogs. Here's Slate. Collects it at the right circle. Swings it around to Pearson. Out front for Declan Quinn. Trying to backhand on net. Was kind of a blind backhand there. And seen all the way by Crecilius. Or actually, that's David Wilson. New goaltender into the game here for the Vandals. David Wilson for Idaho. Back into neutral ice, collected by Antonio Aurelio. Here comes Beeler, and we're going to have a penalty on Nick Sawai. Face-off won by the Vikings. Andre Shapiro going to get it back into neutral ice. Collected by Adam Paulson, the captain for the Vandals. Going to reset behind the net. Gets it off to Christian Lee. Good pressure there from Wojcicki, able to keep it back in the Vandals zone. Good pressure from Wojcicki, sticking it away. And Christian Lee over there for Shapiro. No call there. Back the other way. Here comes Wojcicki. Ethan Secord. Collected. Gonna go the other way. Here comes Secord. Gets it up to Andre Shapiro. Good pass there from Secord. Shapiro behind the net. Gonna be tripped up, and that'll be called. Jackson Wojcicki gonna pass it on goal, and that'll be called. Face-off won by the Vandals. 4-on-4 action here for the next 58. That's going to be 5-on-4 still for the next 58 seconds. Out front for quick shot on goal seen by Morena. Declan Quinn going to collect it and just going to sail it all the way down towards David Wilson. Pressure there from Aaron James, able to collect it. Try to pass there to Carver Johnson. Here comes the Vandals the other way. We're going to get a penalty on the Vandals. .9:52 left in the third period, 9-1 Vikings. Here come the Vandals the other way. So it wasn't a penalty, it was just a delayed offsides that was getting called. Good opportunity there for the Vikings. Good save there by Nolan Morena, and here comes Brett Brumbaugh the other way. Brumbaugh going to try to spring C-cord. Can't quite collect it back. Here comes Brumbaugh. Delay penalty on the Vandals. And that's going to be covered up, or that's going to be touched up by the Vandals. With 9:22 left in the third period. 47 shots for the Vikings, 26 for the Vandals. The Vikings are going to go to the power play. Face off to the left of David Wilson. Won by Jacob James. Here's Deegan with it for the Vikings. Jacob James behind the net. Get it to Harrison Webster. Deegan from the right point swings it across to Tyler Chapman from the left circle. Chapman looks for Jacob James across the ice. Declan Quinn with it. Quinn surveys, gets it up to Tyler Chapman. Chapman, quick shot on goal. Sticked away by Wilson. Here's Chapman with it over to Deegan. Deegan from the top of the left circle. Shot that sails wide. Jacob James over to Tyler Chapman. Chapman, Harrison Webster with a shot from the slot. That sails high and wide. Battling down there, Deegan, and that puck's not going to be offsides. Chapman able to keep it in. Puck's going to hit Willie over there. Here's Chapman with it for the Vikings. Chapman creeps in, gets it to Harrison Webster out front, hit shot that hit the post there. Jacob James, Deegan from the high slot. Puck sails high and wide. Chapman get a battle down there. Bodies there from Harrison Webster, and that puck's going to sail back into the Viking zone. 7:58 left in the third period. Vikings up 9-1, looking for that 10th goal on the evening to give them 4 straight games with 10-plus goals. Here's Andrew Fan the other way. Fan over to James, back to Fan out front, and he scores! Andrew Fan gets the Vikings their 10th goal of the game. Fan with his third. It is a hat trick. Face-off won by Brett Brumbaugh. Andrew Fan recollects the team lead for goals with 16 on the season. Face off won by the Vikings, collected by Secord. He's going to swing it around to Cooper Hunter Smith. Hunter Smith up to James. James to Secord across the blue line. Andrew Fan to Brumbaugh out front. Good save there from Wilson. And the Vandals able to collect it. Not for long though. Andrew Fan gets it out to Brumbaugh out front. And the Vandals back the other way. Here comes Graves with it for the Vandals. Across. Trying to get it across the blue line. No offsides there. Here comes Brett Brumbaugh the other way. Brumbaugh into the Vandal zone. Quick shot. Patted away by Wilson. Wilson. Good stop there from Vandals netminder. Here's. Looks like that's Paulson for the Vandals. Out to Brumbaugh out front. And he scores. That's the hat trick. His 16th of the season. Ties him for the lead. It is 11-1. Here comes the Vandals into the zone. Try to get some offense here for Idaho. Here's Shapiro battling down there. Shapiro going to kick it out. Carver Johnson, he's going to try to swing it up here. Almost hit me over here. (16-17) left in the third period. The Vikings leading 11-1. Multi-goal nights from Aaron James, Tyler Chapman, Andrew Fan, and Brett Brumbaugh. Feels like you say that name. We say those names pretty much every single night with this team. Puck sails out of play. 5:59 left in the third. Face off won by the Vikings. Nicholas Sowai going to swing it around to Kyler Slate. Slate into the neutral zone. He's going to chip it in. Down there is Patrick Pearson. He's going to bust in. Try to find Slate out front. Here comes Declan Quinn. Quinn powering his way. Wraparound opportunity there. That's back into the Vikings zone. Aurelio back to collect it. Pressure from Beeler for the Vandals. Here's Lidvig with it for the Vandals. Quick shot on goal. Hits the mask of Morena. Shot on goal out there for Ludwig, and he scores. Robert Ludwig for the Vandals gets them on the board with 5:23 left in the third period. Face-off won by the Vikings. Tyler Chapman out there. Cooper Hunter Smith collects it. Hunter Smith back with it yet again. Vandals with their second goal of the evening, making it 11-2 with 5:08 left in the third period. Here's Chapman down there. Up to Secord. Secord back the other way. Here comes Lee with it. Lee going to recollect it, reserve. He's going to survey in the Vandal zone. Paulson with it. Turned over out front to Webster. Webster for the Vikings. Surveys. Gets it up to Hunter Smith. Here's Secord from the high slide. Shot on goal and he scores! Ethan Secord Ethan Secord, his 7th goal of the season, extends the Vikings lead up to 12-2. Here's Brett Brumbaugh into the Vandal zone. He's going to collect it over to Andrew Fan. Fan going to circle, get it over to Secord. Back to Fan. Fan creeps in. Vikings on the power play here. 3:57 left in the third period. Out to Brumbaugh in front of the net. Couldn't quite collect it. Here's Secord. Back to Fan. Fan. Back to Secord. Brumbaugh from the right circle. Shot sails wide on back down into the Vikings end. Going to be collected by Secord. It's going to go for a skate here. Here's Secord. Over to Aaron James. James out to Brumbaugh out front. Get to James, back to Anderson out front. It's loose. And that's covered by Wilson. Won by the Vandals. They get it back into the neutral zone. Here's Jesse Deegan with it for the Vikings. Tristan Anderson out there for the Vikings towards the end of this one. Andre Shapiro. Good body there from Shapiro. They're going to call it a board. Here's Andre Shapiro. Here's Jackson Wojcicki, wins it on goal, and Morena just going to cover. Jackson Wojcicki going to win the draw and going to be covered yet again by Morena. Paulson with the shot, and out of the box comes Ludwig for the Vandals. Back into neutral ice. Here comes Patrick Pearson busting into the Vandal zone. Going to pressure Paulson. Here's Lee with it. Gets it over to Ludwig. Ludwig with the second goal of the evening for the Vandals. Pearson. Back to Lee. Lee going to play it to Paulson at the right point. Paulson. Good pad stop there from Morena. Here's Ludwig with it. Ludwig. That's going to be played there by Lee. Good pad block there from Jackson Wojcicki. Paulson going to try to swing it out front. Good defense here from Jackson Wojcicki. He's going to pressure Canavan. Ludwig with it for the Vandals. Going to try to find a Vandal out front. Looks like that was Joey Vaughn. Here's Lee with it. Lee with the shot, padded, steered aside by Morena. Canavan. Shot from the left point. Out front for Lee. Almost cleared there. Cleared finally out to neutralize by Patrick Pearson, who's just going to swing it in towards Wilson. With 1 minute left to play in the third period, the Vikings well on their way to their 9th straight victory on the season. Their 4th win in a row where they've scored more than 10 goals, or 10 or more goals. Back into neutral ice, here comes the Vandals. Quick shot, patted away by Morena, and he's going to cover it. 27.5 left in the third period. Shots 57-39 in favor of the Vikings. Nicholas Sawai going to be escorted to the box here. Looks like Sawai's getting a unsportsmanlike conduct here towards the end of this game. Ethan Secor going to play it out into neutral ice. Here's Patrick Pearson with it for the Vikings. 17 seconds left in the third period. Gotta love the results here tonight for the Vikings. Lots of different goal scorers. Brumbaugh, Chapman, James, Fan, all with multiple goals, and the Vikings get their 9th straight victory, their 4th straight game. They've scored 10 or more goals. The Vikings will be back here tomorrow night at 7 o'clock against these same Idaho Vandals. We will see you then.